r/the10thDentist. Rivanero says, the majority of depressions nowadays is caused by an extremely unhealthy lifestyle. Before I continue, I would first like to address that the addition of the word majority in the title is very important. There are many exceptions to what I'm about to explain here, and I do not deny the fact there are people who have been through a lot, or people who cannot find happiness, no matter the circumstances. But besides that, I feel like using the word depression has become so common over the years, and as a result of that, the meaning of the word has become subject to inflation. This is of course mainly a result of the fact it has become more normalized to talk about, and that causes people to self-diagnose more, based on what they hear from others. And even though I think there is nothing wrong with figuring out what is mentally bothering you, based on information, what you hear from others, I feel like self-diagnosing can also be an acceptance of your defeat. Just as how what was once considered not being very confident will nowadays be often labeled with cool terms like social anxiety, which will make people just accept their shortcomings instead of trying to work on themselves. Every time I hear someone complaining about their depression, or using it as an excuse not to be able to something, I always try to understand their situation by asking them what they think causes this feeling, and what their day normally looks like. And after just asking a few questions, I always find out I'm dealing with someone who spends around 7 hours a day using their phone, who rarely goes for a walk nor goes outside, smokes cigarettes or uses drugs, and eats a lot of junk food. And as soon as I carefully try to imply that the way their life may affect their mental health, they start using it as an excuse by saying they are not able to live a healthier life because of their depression. But I feel like people refuse to acknowledge that this very often is a paradoxical construct. They feel bad because their life unhealthy, and they live unhealthy because they feel bad. It's not weird you feel horrible if that's how you live. It is often seen as a generational issue, which makes a lot of sense. It's no coincidence that the rising of mentally unhealthy activities is parallel to the rising of depression of young people. The world has not become a worse place compared to previous generations, but it has just become way harder to resist all these unhealthy activities. And teenagers are mostly affected by this, since they have never lived a life without all that. And even though this probably feels like common knowledge to some, I often notice how the rising of depressions has been brought up a lot over the years, without the obvious cause being named. Train of Wood says, I've heard this take. In some ways what you're saying is accurately reflected in statistics. However, you do have two separate points here. The first point is one of semantics. Due to the rapid dissemination of buzzwords through social media, many mental health terms have lowered in value. Major depressive disorder, as well as dysthymia and bipolar disorder, can typically be distinguished by a rule of thumb if somebody says they are depressed because it lowers the veracity of their statement. MDD and similar conditions are not situational. Of course episodes can be triggered, but they are marked by unrelated dips in mood. Also, unless it's dysthymia, MDD is not constant, and dips in mood occur for a longer period of time than many folks depressed people experience. This issue is largely obscured by Big Pharma, who aims to peddle antidepressants to many people without the condition. In that way, you're absolutely correct. A large portion of people who say they are depressed do not qualify for MDD or other depressive disorders. In terms of the other assertion, in that case it depends. A lot of people with situational depression could absolutely see improvement if they improved their lifestyle. There are no efforts to hide the fact that high consumption of social media and other online forms of interactions aggravate mental well-being. Exercise and similar activities can improve self-esteem and get hormones to better levels. However, it's worth mentioning that the fact that some people are far more sensitive to these lacks does point to some key genetic and psychological differences. One person can be just fine gorging on junk food and being inactive. Another may turn suicidal. Additionally, regarding what you said about it being a generational issue, almost any condition will seem more prevalent nowadays due to greater access to resources. Moreover, it is a societal issue, as things are significantly more depressing when compared. To cycle back to MDD and other conditions, in which a person meets the actual diagnostic criteria, the number of people who could notice actual remission through lifestyle changes is much lower. Depression, in its actual form, is a neurobiological and psychiatric condition, with physical symptoms as well. I'm not saying lifestyle choices don't contribute to it, nor that your suggestions wouldn't sometimes improve symptoms. But, when you get to genuine depression, that's when it means that lifestyle changes are drastically more difficult to implement due to the organic symptoms of depression. Flaky Bookkeeper 10 says, "So frick, intro. I've had to deal with so much bullshit as someone with genuine ads. Everyone either thinks they have it too because they got distracted from a task one time or they think it doesn't exist. My brother in Christ, this shit is debilitating. I have enormous sensory issues, I'm constantly understimulated, and I have random bouts of depression when I'm doing great, exercising every day, and walking my dog 3 times a day to name a few symptoms." The point being, you're absolutely right that disorders have become buzzwords and lost tons of value. r/the10thDentist. Claritine Madness says, "Happiness is external, not internal. There is this commonly perpetuated idea that you cannot rely on other people/things to be happy. And it's very easy to demonstrate that it's not true with a simple thought experiment. Imagine being stranded on an island in the middle of an ocean. You can't escape it, there is no internet, no radio signal, nothing. You are as alone as it gets, unless you count the sea turtles and crabs. And you will live there for the rest of your life. Do you think that you could be happy in a situation like that? I don't think so. Your happiness depends on the people around you and your surroundings. If you are deprived of any kind of human contact and stuck in a place that you'd rather leave, I really doubt that you would feel happy. And reciting positive life tips that you saw on Facebook probably won't help." Falcon24 says, "The fact that you're unhappy when you're unable to meet your basic needs doesn't make happiness external." Erdl94 says, "So wait, I get stranded on an uninhabited island, no rent, no taxes, no stupid 9 to 5 job, no close family relatives putting pressure on me to live differently than I see fit. Well, yes. I think you might be onto something, except you just explained a set of circumstances that would actually make me quite happy." Runagato says, "False, I close my eyes, and I'm happy just being there, more like in peace, but OFC only people who can be happy with nothing, or already have experienced to be really wealthy have the time or no attachment to things can experience it, points of view, etc. Next." XXXBigChizXX says, "There's a shit ton of Buddhist monks, such as Tenzin Palmo, who've meditated in incomparably barren caves with no stimuli for over a decade or more, and have achieved a consistent euphoric level of happiness, beyond what most people will in their day-to-day lives. Based on that, I disagree with you." r/the10thDentist. Dalagribble 2024 says, "In most cases, you should be able to decide whether or not to marry your partner within the first year of dating. If you truly prioritize getting to know someone, 365 should be plenty of time to determine if someone is spouse material or not. In a majority of cases, I think that after a year of dating, that's a great time to reflect on if you should marry someone. If you aren't getting good feelings about marrying someone after a full year of dating them, you are indecisive, you didn't learn enough about them in your first year of dating, you don't like the idea of marriage itself, or your partner is hiding stuff from you and isn't being open and honest with you. You need to decide for yourself if you actually like the concept of marriage itself, or you need to be decisive in your dating decisions. It's not a good idea to be indecisive about whether you like the idea of marriage or not. Divorce has never been easier to do. Attitudes about divorce in general make it socially acceptable in most places, and prenup agreements also exist. I guess my too long didn't read is that you should avoid being indecisive in a relationship whenever possible. 3 Suspects says, this mentality is exactly why the divorce rate is so high. Anxita Panda 918 says, I think this just varies from person to person. I could totally see myself marrying my current partner one day, and we talk about it sometimes. But I'm also grateful we are not in the financial position to make serious commitments yet. It's one thing to think about a potential future together, it's another to plan it. Send Cake or Nude says, depends on age, my dude. If you're super young, I think it's harder, because you really don't know yourself that well, and you're way more likely to change. But most couples I know who got married in their 30s, or Christians who were more focused on marriage, I guess, worked it out pretty damn quick. But with the caveat people are clear about what they want, and are more careful when they're younger, I don't entirely disagree with you. Joyce says, so because divorce is easy, we should rush into marriages? First of all, it's not easy to divorce, and it's not cheap. It's easier than it was in the past, but you're ignoring the emotional toll of getting to the point of filing. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.